They came from the north. It was foggy when they got there. The people of Dana, who were called the Tuatha De Danann, flew to Ireland. They came from 4 cities, powerful Falias, bright Gorias, peaceful Fenias, and wealthy Murias. In these cities they had 4 wise men who taught skill, knowledge, and perfect wisdom. Their names were Senias, Arias the poet with fair hair, Urias the noble, and Morias. They brought 4 valuable things from these 4 cities: a stone of virtue from Falias, also called the Stone of Destiny, a sword from Gorias, a spear of triumph from Phineas, and a cauldron from Murias, where no one ever left unhappy. At the time, Nuada was king of the Tuatha De Danann, but Manannan beat him. Ogma, the king's brother, taught them how to write, and Diensect was a healer who stood out. Gobnu was a blacksmith, Credinus was a craftsman, and Night was a god of war. The most powerful of their women were Badb, a goddess of battle, Macha, who ate the skulls of men killed in battle, Morigu, the crow of battle, and the sisters Era, Fodla, and Banba, daughters of the Dagda, whose names were later given to Ireland. Bridget was a poet's woman, and poets worshipped her. She had a lot of power, and was very beautiful. She was also a healer and a blacksmith, and she made the whistle that people used to call each other in the middle of the night. On one side her face was awful, but on the other it was very pretty. Among the other women there were many shadow forms and powerful queens, but Dana, who was known as the mother of the gods, stood out. Tuatha loved 3 things more than anything else: the plough, the sun, and the hazel tree. They had a well under the sea where the 9 hazel trees of knowledge, inspiration, and poetry's wisdom grew. When it rained, their leaves and flowers would grow at the same time and fall into the well. The 5 salmon would eat the nuts, which would show up as red spots on their skin. Anyone who ate one of these salmon would know everything there is to know about wisdom and poetry. 7 streams of wisdom flowed out of and back into that well, and people from all walks of life drank from them all. The Tuatha De Danann landed in the northwestern part of Connaught on the first day of Beltane, which we now call May Day. But the Firbolgs, also known as the Men of the Bag, who came to Ireland from the south before them, saw nothing but mist on the hills. Eochaid, son of Urk, was king of the Firbolgs at the time. Teamhair was told by messengers that a new kind of people had come to Ireland, but no one knew where they came from, the ground, the sky, or the wind, and that they had set up their home at Magrain. They thought Eochaid would be shocked when he heard the news, but he wasn't. He'd had a dream the night before, and when he asked his druids what it meant, they told him that he wouldn't have to wait long for a big enemy to show up. So, King Eochaid talked to his best advisors, and they agreed to send one of their best fighters to meet with the outsiders and talk with them. Then they chose Sreng, a strong fighter, and he jumped up and grabbed his strong red-brown shield, his 2 thick-handled spears, his sword, his head covering, and his thick iron club. He left Teamhair and headed for Magrain, where the foreigners were. But before he got there, spies from the Tuatha De Danann saw him and sent one of their champions, Bress, with his shield, sword, and 2 spears, to meet with him and talk. So the 2 champions moved slowly toward each other, keeping a close eye on each other and admiring each other's arms, until they were close enough to talk. Then they stopped. Each put his shield in front of his body and hit it hard into the ground, and they looked at each other over the rim. Bress spoke first, and when Sreng realized it was Irish, his own language, he relaxed. As they got closer, they asked each other about their families and where they were from. After a while, they put their shields down. Sreng said he had raised his because he was afraid of Bress's small sharp spears. Bress said he was scared of the thick-handled spears he saw Sreng carrying, and he wondered if all of the Firbolgs had the same weapons. Now Sreng took the ties off his spears to show them off. Bress was amazed by how strong and heavy they were, and how sharp the sides were, even though they didn't have tips. Sreng told him that those spears were called Kreisek, and that they could break through shields and crush flesh and bones, causing death or wounds that would not heal. Then he saw that Bress was carrying sharp, narrow spears with hard points. The last thing they did was trade spears, which was how the fighters on each side saw the weapons that the other side used. Bress told the Firbolgs that if they gave up half of Ireland, his people would be happy to take it without fighting. If they didn't give up that much, there would be war. and he and Sreng agreed that they would stay friends no matter what happened in the future. Sreng went back to Team Hare with the message and the spear. He told his people to share the country and not fight with people who had much better weapons than they did. But after talking with his top men, Eochaid said, "We won't give these strangers half of the kingdom, because if we do, they'll soon take the whole thing." When Bress went back to the Tuatha De Danann and showed them the heavy spear, and told them about the strong, terrible warrior from whom he got it, and how big and well-equipped he was, they knew there was going to be a fight soon. Then they moved from where they were to a better place further west in Connaught, where they set up and built walls and ditches on the plain of Magnia, with the big mountain Belgata behind them. As they went there and built their defenses, Badb, Macha and the Morigu, 3 of their queens, went to Team Hare, where the Firbolgs were planning their next move. With the power of their spells, they covered the whole area in mists and clouds of darkness, and rained fire and blood on the people, making it so they couldn't see or talk to each other for 3 days. At the end of that time, however, the spell was broken by Cesarn, Nyathach, and Ignathach, 3 Firbolg druids. The Firbolgs then got their troops together and marched to the eastern edge of the plain of Magnia with their 11 battalions. Then Nuada, the king of the Tuatha, sent his poets to make the same offer he had made before, which was that he would be happy with half of the country if he could get it. King Eochaid sent the poets to ask his top men for advice, but when they heard what was being offered, they turned it down. So the representatives asked when the war would start. "We need a delay," they said, "because we need time to get our spears and armor ready, to polish our helmets and sharpen our swords, and to get spears made that look like yours. And if you like us, you'll want spears made by Chrysax for you," they said. So they agreed to a 3/4 year delay so they could get ready. They started the war on a day in the middle of summer. 27 hurlers from the Tuatha De Danann went up against 27 hurlers from the Firbolgs, and they were beaten and killed. Then King Eochaid sent a messenger to find out if the fight would happen every day or every other day. Nuada said that it would happen every day, but that each side should have the same number of soldiers fighting. Eochaid agreed, but he didn't feel very happy about it because there were more Firbolgs than Tuatha De Danann. So the fight went on for 4 days, and both sides did amazing things and killed a lot of champions. But for those who were still alive at night, the doctors on both sides would make a healing bath with every kind of plant or herb that could be used as medicine. This would help them be strong and healthy for the next day's battle. On the 4th day, the men of Dea got the upper hand and pushed the Firbolgs back. Their king, Eochaid, got very thirsty during the battle, so he and 350s of his men left the field to find something to drink. However, 350s of the Tuatha De Danann followed them until they reached a place called Tre Eotele, where they fought fiercely until Eochaid died. He was buried there, and a big pile of stones was put on top of his grave. And when only 300 Firbolgs, led by Sreng, were left of the 11 battalions, Nuada offered them peace and the choice of one of Ireland's 5 provinces. Then Sreng said they would take Connaught. He, his people and their children all lived there. Ferdiad was the one who came later and fought so bravely against Cuchulainn. He was killed by Erc, son of Cairbre. Some people called that fight, which was the first one the men of Dea fought in Ireland, the first battle of Mag Tuiread, and the Tuatha De Danann took control of Team Hare. At the time it was the best town because its ruler was the High King of Ireland. The green of Team Hare was to the west of the Hill of the Hostages. The King's Rant was to the north, and the Hill of the Hostages was to the northeast of the High Seat. And to the northeast, on the Hill of the Seed, there was a well from which a stream ran. The first mill in Ireland was built on this stream, and to the north of the Hill of the Hostages was the Lia Fail, which used to roar under the feet of every monarch who took control of Ireland. And the Wall of the Three Whispers stood near the House of the Ladies, which had 7 entrances to the east and 7 doors to the west. Team Hare's feasts were held there, and to the south there was both the Fortress of 1,000 soldiers and the Hill of the Women's Soldiers. This was how the legendary Tuatha De Danann became the ancient race of Ireland and rule over the land for thousands of years, till the coming of the Milesians, ancestors to the modern Irish people. If you enjoyed this tale, please like and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks for listening.